The mine wasn't supposed to exist. That's what made it dangerous. Not the kind of dangerous you could see, like loose rocks or steep drops, but the kind that meant it had been forgotten on purpose. And places like that usually had a reason. We found it by accident. Or at least, that's what it looked like at the time. Stop. My brother's voice cut through the wind just as I took another step up the slope. I turned back. What? He pointed. Not at me. Past me. Toward the rock face. At first, I didn't see it. Just stone. Jagged. Uneven. Blending into the rest of the mountain. But then the light shifted. And the shadow changed. There was a line. Too straight to be natural. Too dark to be nothing. We both stood there for a second. Not moving. Because when something doesn't belong, you feel it before you understand it. That's not rock, I said. No, he replied. It's not. 2 days earlier, we didn't know we'd be standing there. We didn't know we'd be anywhere. You're both old enough. That's what he said. Like that explained everything. Like that made it okay. Our uncle didn't raise his voice. Didn't make it a fight. He just stood there in the doorway, one hand resting on the frame like he had already checked out of the conversation. We've done what we could. What does that even mean? I asked. It means you figure it out now. My brother, Caleb, didn't say anything. He just watched. Always watching. Taking things in before deciding what mattered. We don't have anywhere to go, I said. He shrugged. You will. That was it. That was the moment. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just final. We packed fast. Because staying longer would have meant arguing. And arguing wouldn't have changed anything. The mountains were the only direction that made sense. Not because they were safe. Because they were empty. People don't go up there, Caleb said as we walked along the road that first night. Exactly. We didn't have a plan. We had direction. And sometimes that's enough. By the second day, the ground changed. Road turned to trail. Trail turned to uneven rock and dirt. Trees thinned. Wind picked up. The kind that cuts through layers and doesn't stop. We should have brought more, I said. We brought what we could carry. Not enough. It'll have to be. That was Caleb. Not hopeful. Not pessimistic. Just exact. We kept moving. Because stopping meant thinking too much. And thinking too much meant realizing how bad things actually were. By late afternoon, we were higher than I expected. The air thinner. The ground steeper. Every step took more effort. That ridge, Caleb said, pointing ahead. We crossed that. We might find some kind of cover. Might. Better than nothing. We pushed the last stretch. Legs burning. Breath uneven. And then, we saw it. At first, it looked like shadow. A darker patch against the rock. But shadows move with light. This didn't. Caleb stepped closer. Carefully. Studying it. It's recessed, he said. Like an opening. I moved up beside him. Looked closer. There it was. A partially collapsed entrance carved into the mountain. Wooden support beams, rotted but still holding shape. Rock cleared away just enough to reveal space. A mine, I said. Yeah. We stood there, both thinking the same thing. Shelter. But also, risk. Could cave in, I said. Could be unstable. Yeah. We didn't move. Because stepping inside something like that was a decision you couldn't take back. Then Caleb said something that settled it. It blocks the wind. I looked at the entrance again. The way the mountain curved around it. The way the air didn't hit directly. He was right. Okay, I said. We moved closer. The ground near the entrance was uneven but solid. No fresh collapse. No signs of recent movement. Just age. And time. Caleb picked up a loose rock. Threw it inside. It bounced once. Then again. Then stopped. No echo of collapse. No shifting. Sounds stable, he said. Sounds, I repeated. But we stepped inside anyway. The temperature changed immediately. Outside was sharp. Cold. Relentless. Inside. Still. Cool. But protected. The light faded quickly. The entrance only let in so much. After a few steps, it was just shadow. I pulled out the flashlight. Flicked it on. The beam cut through the darkness. The tunnel extended forward. Not far. Maybe 20 feet before turning slightly. Support beams lined the sides. Old. But still holding. The ground was uneven but packed. Not loose. Not shifting. This might actually work, I said. Caleb didn't answer. He moved forward. Slowly. Checking each step. Each beam. Each section of wall. He crouched near one of the supports. Pressed against it. Still solid, he said. I exhaled. Didn't realize I'd been holding that in. We moved deeper. Not far. Just enough to get out of the entrance. The wind disappeared completely. And just like that, it felt different. Not safe. Not yet. But better. We dropped our bags. Sat down. For the first time in 2 days. We weren't exposed. That's something, I said. Caleb nodded. Yeah. We didn't celebrate. Didn't relax completely. Because this wasn't a solution. It was a start. That night, we stayed inside. The cold still came through the ground. To the rock. But it wasn't the same. The wind couldn't reach us. And that made all the difference. I didn't sleep much. Every sound echoed differently inside the tunnel. Small shifts. Distant cracks. The mountains settling. At one point, I sat up. Listened. Did you hear that? I asked. Caleb was already awake. Yeah. What was it? He didn't answer right away. Then, not close. That was enough. Morning came slowly. Light creeping in through the entrance. Turning the darkness into something visible again. We stepped outside. The mountains stretched out around us. Cold. Empty. Unforgiving. But we weren't in the open anymore. And that mattered. We spent the morning reinforcing what we could. Cleared loose rocks near the entrance. Stacked them to create partial wind barriers. Checked the supports again. Marked weak spots. This section needs reinforcement, Caleb said, pointing to a beam near the entrance. Yeah. We'll fix it. How? He glanced at the slope behind us. At the scattered wood from old debris. We'll figure it out. We always did. Or at least, we tried. By midday, the space looked different. Not like a home, but like something being worked on. And that's when we noticed it. Further inside, past where we had stopped the night before, the tunnel didn't end. It curved. And beyond that curve, the darkness looked deeper. Different. Caleb stood up slowly, staring at it. That's not just a tunnel, he said. No, I replied. Because now, we could both see it. This wasn't just a collapsed entrance. It was part of something bigger. Something that went deeper into the mountain. And whatever was down there had been left behind. For a reason, Caleb grabbed the flashlight, turned it on. The beam barely reached around the curve. But it was enough. Enough to see that this wasn't just shelter. This was a system, and we had only just stepped into it. We didn't go deeper right away. That was the instinct, to push forward, to see everything at once. But instinct gets you hurt in places like this. Mountains don't forgive mistakes. And minds, they remember them. Caleb stood at the edge of the curve, flashlight in hand, the beam cutting just enough into the darkness to show that the tunnel didn't end. It bent, dropped slightly, and continued. We check what we have first, he said. I nodded. Because he was right. What we had mattered more than what we might find. We spent the next few hours reinforcing the entrance. It wasn't dramatic work. No big changes. Just small adjustments that made a difference. We gathered loose rock and stacked it along the outer edge, creating a low barrier to block direct wind. Not perfect, but enough to break the worst of it. Then we worked on the first support beam. The wood was old, dry, cracked, but still carrying weight. We found broken timber further down the slope and hauled it back piece by piece. Cut it down, fit it into place. Caleb handled most of the structure, measuring by eye, adjusting angles, pressing until it held. Doesn't have to be perfect, he said. Just has to hold. By the time the sun dropped behind the ridge, the difference was noticeable. The air inside stayed still longer. The cold came slower. It wasn't comfort, but it was control. That night, we lit a small fire just outside the entrance. Carefully placed, shielded from wind. The heat drifted inward slightly. Not much, but enough to take the edge off. We sat near the opening, not talking much, just listening. The mountains had their own rhythm. Wind shifting across ridges. Distant cracks. Occasional rock movement far away. But inside the mine, it was quieter. Tomorrow, Caleb said finally. We go in. I nodded. Because now, we were ready. Or at least, ready enough. Morning came colder. The kind of cold that settles into everything. Clothes. Skin. Bones. We ate what little we had. Rationed carefully. Then we stood at the curve. The point where the mine stopped being known. Caleb turned the flashlight on. Looked at me once. Stay close, he said. Yeah. We stepped forward. The tunnel sloped slightly downward. Not steep, but enough to notice. The air shifted again. Cooler. Drier. Less movement. The beam of light revealed more supports along the walls. Stronger here. Better maintained. That meant something. This part was used more, I said. Yeah. Which meant, the deeper we went, the more important it had been. The tunnel widened after about 30 feet. opened into a chamber. Not massive, but larger than anything before. Wooden frames lined one side. Old equipment scattered across the ground. Rust-covered tools. Broken carts. Storage area, Caleb said. Looks like it. I crouched near one of the carts. Ran my hand over it. Dust. Time. But no recent disturbance. Hasn't been touched in years, I said. Good, Caleb replied. Because untouched meant predictable. We moved through slowly, checking the ground, the walls, listening for instability. Everything held. At the far end of the chamber. Another tunnel. This one narrower, but reinforced. And something else. Tracks. Metal rails embedded into the ground. Minecart system, I said. Caleb nodded. That means this goes further. And deeper. We followed it. The air grew heavier. Not dangerous, but noticeable. More enclosed. Less circulation. The tunnel stretched longer than I expected. Then, it opened again. This time, into something different. A vertical drop. Not a full shaft, but a descent. Wooden ladder built into the side. Reinforced with metal brackets. Caleb stopped at the edge. Shined the light down. It disappeared into darkness. Great, I muttered. He didn't respond. Just studied it. Then, he tested the ladder. Pressed down. Checked the supports. Still holding, he said. You sure? No. But he started climbing anyway. I followed. The descent wasn't long. Maybe 15 feet. But it felt longer. The air at the bottom was different. Cooler. But steadier. We stepped off the ladder. And into something neither of us expected. The tunnel here wasn't rough. It was shaped. Clean edges. Even walls. Not carved randomly. Designed. This isn't just a mine, I said. No. Caleb's voice was quieter now. This was built. We moved forward slowly. The ground leveled out. And then, the tunnel opened again. But this time, it wasn't just a chamber. It was a space. Large. Structured. And in the center, a system. Metal tanks. Pipes running along the walls. Valves. Connections. Water. I stepped closer. Is that? Yeah, Caleb said. Water storage. I checked one of the tanks. Tapped it lightly. Full. Or at least. Partially. How is this still? I started. Sealed, he said. And underground. Protected. Stable. This wasn't just a mining operation. This was infrastructure. Built to last. Built to survive. I turned slowly, taking it all in. Pipes ran deeper into the rock, disappearing into smaller tunnels. Filtration system, I said. Or distribution, Caleb replied. Either way, it meant something critical. This place had been designed to support more than just mining. It had been designed to sustain. And then we saw it. On the far wall. A door. Metal. Heavy. Not like the wood and stone around it. Newer. Stronger. Deliberate. Caleb stepped toward it. I followed. The surface was clean. Not untouched. But maintained longer than everything else. And beside it, a lever. Simple. Direct. Connected. We both stopped. Because now, this wasn't just discovery. This was a decision. You thinking what I'm thinking? I asked. Yeah. That whatever's behind that is the reason all of this exists. I exhaled slowly. Because everything we'd found so far, the tunnels, the storage, the water system, it all pointed here. This wasn't the mine. This was something built inside the mine. Something hidden. Something protected. Caleb reached out. Paused. Then looked at me. Ready, he asked. I didn't answer right away. Because I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. Yeah. He pulled the lever. There was a deep mechanical sound. Metal shifting. Locks releasing. The door moved. Slowly. Heavier than anything we'd seen before. And as it opened, a rush of cold, controlled air hit us. Different from the tunnels. Different from the mountain. Clean. Intentional. The darkness beyond wasn't empty. It was structured. And whatever was inside wasn't abandoned. It was waiting. The air on the other side of the door didn't feel like the mountain. That was the first thing I noticed. It wasn't just cooler. It was controlled. Filtered. Like it belonged somewhere sealed off from everything above. Caleb didn't move right away. Neither did I. We both stood there in that narrow threshold, looking into the darkness beyond, knowing, without saying it, that this wasn't just another part of the mine. This was something built inside it. Something that had nothing to do with digging rock. Light, Caleb said. I raised the flashlight. The beam stretched forward. And then, it hit something reflective. Metal. Walls. Not rough stone. Not timber supports. Engineered. We stepped inside. Slowly, carefully, the floor beneath our boots changed. From packed dirt to smooth concrete. That alone was enough to tell us everything. No one pours concrete deep inside a mountain unless they plan on staying or hiding. The room opened wider as we moved forward. Not a chamber like the others. Not irregular. Structured. Deliberate. The flashlight moved across rows of equipment. Shelving. Storage containers. But more than that. Systems. Wiring ran cleanly along the walls. Pipes were secured, labeled. Panels mounted with purpose. This wasn't just built, I said quietly. It was designed. Caleb nodded once. Eyes scanning everything. Not missing anything. We moved deeper into the room. And that's when we saw the lights. Not on, but present. Fixtures embedded in the ceiling. Protected. Maintained. Power, Caleb said. Yeah. Which meant, if power came on, this place would come alive. I stepped toward one of the panels on the wall. Ran my fingers across it. Dust. But not heavy. Not untouched. That bothered me. Someone's been here, I said. Caleb looked at me. How recent? I shook my head. Don't know. But this isn't. Abandoned the same way everything else is. He didn't respond. But I could see it. He was thinking the same thing. This place hadn't just been left. It had been closed. There's a difference. We continued forward. At the far end of the room, another section opened. Larger. More complex. And in the center, a generator system. Bigger than anything we'd seen above. Multiple units connected together. Fuel lines running into sealed tanks. Backup systems branching off. This powers everything, I said. Caleb stepped closer. Examined the connections. Not just this room. No. This powers all of it. The water system. The ventilation. Whatever else we hadn't seen yet. Everything tied back here. I moved to the control panel beside it. Switches. Dials. Manual overrides. Old. But intact. Think it works? I asked. Caleb looked at the fuel lines. Checked the seals. Then, only one way to find out. I hesitated. Because this wasn't like starting a fire. We're fixing a beam. This was activating something that had been silent. For a long time. What if it brings something else back? I said. Caleb met my eyes. Then we deal with it. That was always his answer. Not careless. Not reckless. Just forward. We didn't have the luxury of waiting. We needed stability. We needed systems. And this place could give us that. I nodded. All right. We worked together. Checked the fuel intake. Cleared what we could. Made sure the lines weren't blocked. It took time. More than we expected. But eventually, everything was in place. Caleb stepped back. Ready. I took a breath. Then flipped the switch. Nothing. For a second. Just silence. Then, a low vibration. The machine coughed. Struggled. Then, caught. The sound filled the room. Deep. Steady. Alive. Lights flickered above us. Once. Twice. Then held. The entire space shifted. From dark. To visible. From abandoned. To active. I stepped back. Because now, we could see everything. The scale. This wasn't just one room. There were sections. Corridors branching off. Doors leading to other areas. This place was bigger than we thought. Much bigger. The ventilation system kicked in next. Air moved through the vents. Clean. Consistent. Temperature stabilized. No more mountain cold. No more damp. Just control. I turned slowly, taking it all in. This is insane, I said. Caleb didn't answer. He was already moving. Checking systems. Opening panels. Understanding. Because that's what mattered. Not just seeing it. Knowing how it worked. We spent hours exploring. Room by room. Some were storage. Food supplies. Sealed. Still usable. Others. Living space. Bunks. Tables. Even a small kitchen setup. Not luxurious. But complete. This wasn't temporary. This was built for long-term use. Maybe years. Then we found the last room. Different from the rest. Smaller. But more protected. Reinforced walls. Thicker door. And inside. A console. Screens. Old, but intact. Communication equipment. I stepped closer. This wasn't just for survival, I said. Caleb nodded. It was for coordination. Which meant, this place wasn't alone.